Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the Moment of Truth. People could benefit a lot if they learn to mind their own business, not just on the personal level, but also if you're, say, an elected representative, you should be minding your own business, or at the very least, that of your own constituents. I told you about how Newark's mayor, Baraka, pulled his attention-whoring stunt at an ICE facility in New Jersey. There were also a few other do-nothing bootlick politicians in tow, one of which being Representative LaMonica McIver. And because these clowns were performing for the cameras, she decided to be all extra with it. And at the time, she probably thought that she got herself a few good headlines for herself, a couple of interesting images. She can certainly use it for campaign fundraising, which is the whole point of this kind of stuff. But instead, it's also gotten her something she didn't count on, an indictment from Trump's DOJ. A federal grand jury indicted McIver on 3 counts of forcibly impeding and interfering with federal law enforcement officers. The indictment alleges that McIver interjected during Baraka's arrest, yelling, hell no," and that she attempted to thwart the arrest by putting her arms around Baraka. The indictment goes on to say that McIver slammed her forearm into an officer and reached out and tried to restrain the agent by forcibly grabbing him, and that she pushed past a second agent using each of her forearms to visibly strike him. Now, of course, obviously, this is Trump's DOJ, but like a lot of these prosecutors in general, they like to use all sorts of action verbs that are over the top. They exaggerate, if not outright lie. I sincerely doubt that this overweight bureaucrat turned into an MMA fighter on the spot, especially under those circumstances. So there's a lot of people out here who are trying to milk this incident for all it's worth. But since the indictment, McIver issued a statement saying, I was simply doing my job, and that Trump in the indictment was simply meant to scare me out of doing the work I was elected to do. Notice she didn't say a single word about the voters. She didn't say, I'm doing what the voters wanted me to, or I'm protecting my voters, or I'm sticking up for my voters. She's not protecting anybody. The people that she was out there showing out for the cameras are people who are not even citizens. The individuals in that ICE facility were not U.S. citizens, they were illegal aliens. That's the reason that they were in that facility in the first place. She wasn't there to represent her constituents. She wasn't there because she was elected to do that, because none of the people that she's trying to stick up for elected her. They didn't vote for her. And obviously her own constituents, the poor deluded fools who voted for her, those individuals are not represented in that ICE facility. They're not the ones being deported. So what the hell is she doing it for? This McIver woman is part of the Congressional Black Caucus. And I'm not even going to play the game of whether or not this woman happens to be a tether or not. As far as I'm concerned, if you're not standing up for our group, if you're not standing up for Black Americans, specifically those of us who came out of slavery in this country, then as far as I'm concerned, you might as well be one of the tethers. I lump you in with them regardless. Because when we're talking about issues like this, it's just like when I talk about being black first. That goes beyond just a specific lineage. If you're a black person anywhere on this planet, you're supposed to be standing for an oppositional ideology to white supremacy, an oppositional ideology to anti-black racism, and that starts with all of the ignoring of our interest in issues that goes on constantly, like what she's doing. The Congressional Black Caucus, their word means absolutely nothing. They don't have any stroke. I don't see any black people, especially young black people, giving a rip about Miss McIver's self-imposed hardships. The black grassroots doesn't care about her little problems. She can be sent to prison for life for all we care. It doesn't matter because she's not standing up for us. But you want to know who else doesn't care about her problems? The Congressional Hispanic Caucus, La Raza, or any of these other Hispanic ethnic pride organizations. They're not riding for her either. They're not even talking about her. They're not backing her. They don't seem to even notice her problem, which was done on their behalf. This is the problem with all of that racial coalition stuff that people were talking about. That was a mirage that never actually existed, but it didn't stop people from spending decades chasing it anyway. Everyone else has been wrongly hopping on our history and our struggle because they recognize there's no substitute for the moral legitimacy that we represent. Ours is an honest struggle rooted in morality and in reality. Everybody else, it's all about their own crass, self-serving agenda. We're not about to let shills, sellouts, and liars like the Congressional Black Caucus try to tell everybody that we support what is nothing more than opportunism. Because that's what's really going on here, is what's always been going on. Everybody trying to find a way to hop on the coattails of our suffering and try to attach themselves to our own virtuous struggle so that they could try to whitewash what it is that they're doing for themselves and themselves alone. You've heard of money laundering? Well, what so many other groups want is for us to support their moral laundering. What they want is a morality car wash, and they expect us to scrub-a-dub-dub until their reputation is clean. They want for us to lend the good offices of our own impeccable moral struggle to what is nothing more than people trying to see what they can get for nothing. Okay, so what are the chances that McIver is going to wind up having to do some time? Well, if past experience is any indication, not much. Because you see, Trump's DOJ already brought charges against Baraka himself for trespassing, but of course they dropped those just in time for him to lose his damn-to-fail bid to become governor. In my earlier video about this, you'll recall I explained how Baraka was doing all of this in order to raise his own political profile because he was running for governor. Well, he predictably lost his bid to be the Democratic nominee, so if he was expecting this stunt to get him a groundswell of Latino support, that clearly didn't materialize. So all of that was for nothing. But the Trump administration probably got themselves a couple of quickie headlines saying we're indicting this Baraka guy and then immediately dropped the case. So as far as they're concerned, their own brain-dead supporters on the MAGA right, they're not going to remember the part about the charges being dropped. They'll feel as if, well, at least he's taken the fight to those Democrats somehow, and that'll be enough to delight them for a while. And I fully expect that this case against McIver will also go the same way. Republicans have made performative extremism and message legislation into their entire MO. I would really be surprised if they actually decided to go all the way with this one. But yet again, this incident is another reminder of why we do not and should not trust any of these black politicians that these white political parties put in front of us. These sellouts, they care more about people who aren't even citizens, people who broke into the country illegally, or who broke the law by remaining after their visas expired, than they do foundational black Americans who built this country and who are supposed to be their actual constituency. The second Trump term has Democrats going back to the old playbook. Same way Barack Obama got white media attention by pretending to argue with dubious cabinet members every time they came before the Senate. And then Kamala Harris pathetically tried to do the same thing when she thought she was going to mount her own presidential run. During Trump's first term, everyone couldn't wait to mug for the cameras and pretend like they were really standing up to the orange man. Well, this time around, they're doing the same thing, only more of it. Baraka thought that he would do like Barack Obama and Kamala Harris before him, but he found out that playbook just doesn't work anymore. Hell, it didn't even work for Kamala Harris, because if Biden hadn't personally cherry-picked her out of the political dumpster to be his VP, she would have flamed out completely after her disastrous presidential run. And whenever these clowns go out of their way to do these kind of stunts, that's not some sort of victimless crime. We always got these idiots who can't wait to be jumping out a window, climbing up on buildings, making general fools of themselves for everyone except us. That sends a political message to everyone. That you don't have to do anything for black people. You go crazy, you just lose your mind for people who aren't even citizens before you even lift a finger or say a single peep of discontent on black people's behalf. None of these sorry Negroes who are out there in front of the cameras have said a word about reparations. All the black people in America who are routinely killed by these anti-black racists, black people are the main victims of hate crimes in America, and yet you don't see Baraka or McIver or anyone else doing any sort of publicity stunts for an anti-black hate crime law. They're not protesting anything on our behalf. They're not coming out and making a scene. Now, they're going to have their shills, trolls, and toadies, especially as the election cycle powers into next year. They're going to be the ones on the internet telling us that we have to vote for these guys. Vote blue no matter who. Why? Because if you don't, well, the Republicans will be even worse. I have no idea what that's supposed to even mean. Are the Republicans going to grandstand on irrelevant issues, push policies that harm us, prioritize everybody over us, and totally ignore black people in our interest? Is that what we're supposed to be scared the Republicans are going to do? Because that's exactly what these Democrats are doing right now. At least Republicans don't pretend to be for us. Better an honest enemy than a false friend. So, am I basically neutral when it comes to the issue of this McIver woman going to prison or not? Well, let me go ahead and put it this way. And I know that this might strike some people as being bad form on my part, but to be bluntly honest, if these sellouts aren't going to stick up for us, and they're not, rather than try to be neutral about it, truth be told, I would probably start saying, lock them up. When you act as part of the effort to marginalize and completely and thoroughly ignore black people, there need to be consequences for that. Not for protesting Trump's ICE roundup, though I don't really have a problem with it, but for ignoring the black vote and prioritizing people who aren't even citizens. That's not doing what voters told you to do. That's sticking up for some Democrat super objective that's supposed to make the black vote completely and thoroughly irrelevant. And that being the case, these sellouts may think they're going to play the hero, but all they're really going to do is wind up playing the fool. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors: David Williams, Iris Johnson, Jesse Good, Farrell Taylor, and Esfeo Dingaswayo. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.